Hello folks, I'm LA Little, and this is your daily TA wrap, where we take a look at these markets from a neoclassical perspective and ask ourselves what happened today and what does it tell us about tomorrow. I do a show 4 times a week. I do it Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of what became a wet, stormy afternoon in the Rocky Mountains. Folks, talk about stormy, just take one look at that chart and tell me what it tells you. Outage. NASDAQ down 3 hours today. All the stocks got halted. They had issues yesterday with options that continued today, and finally they had to shut down. Took them 3 hours to restore. Got a nice little spurt here at the end. Kind of messed up the trading day. That's going to be interesting tomorrow to see how that unwinds. As far as the markets today, up day. We finally got a bounce. Last night, you know, I did something I typically don't do, and at least I try not to do. And those of you that have watched me, listened to me over the years, know that I'm a pretty steady trader. I'm pretty steady about what's happening. I usually don't get that emotional. Last night, you know, I let my emotions kind of carry because I was thinking we're going to see a bounce within the first 3 days of this week, and if we don't, it's probably going to be curtains. And I pretty much let that, you know, that ideal carry me last night in terms of what I was thinking and what I was saying, and it did nothing with respect to what I thought it would do. Instead, we saw this market push higher today. We knew this market was oversold. We knew there was a good chance that it is going to get a bounce somewhere. Today kind of looks like it started that bounce. We'll look at the charts and see if they tell us it's going to continue. But you know, I do my best to stay even-keeled and read the tape, not what I think. And sometimes that's hard to do. So anyway, I apologize for that. Try to do better, right? You always try to learn from your mistakes. We had the Dow up 66, 14,963. Didn't get back over 15 yet. S&P's tacked on 14, 1657. The composite up 39, 36, 38 and 3/4. The NDX was up 30 and a third, 3101, almost 3102, and the Russell was the leader again. 1.5% higher, 1036 and a quarter. We had pretty much across the board, it was reasonably flat. All of the metals were slightly up. They're slightly up again tonight. The dollar was up about 0.5% early, only up 0.25% at the end of the day. Bonds struggled all day, finally got a decent bounce though. Those quotes looked wrong on the bonds today. They're up slightly after hours. Crude oil, I believe crude oil was up again today as well. Let's go look at the charts. And let's start with the S&P, and let's start with what's happening here, okay? So last night, right, actually yesterday, we had the Fed minutes come out. They did the, you know, as Jeff Cooper likes to say, they did the cha-cha-cha, right? They went down, they went up, and then they went down again. And that 3-pronged move, you know, was a fairly violent move, and they ended near the lows. It almost looks like, you know, given the trade today, it almost looks like yesterday they just took out the shorts. Sometimes they take them down and take them up. It kind of flushed out that way. But today we actually got over the high from yesterday, had a higher low. Folks, this sets up the possibility now for an ABCD down, right? Last night we were looking at it. I was wondering about these 2 bars, and did we actually have that possibility? And we didn't. We didn't have it on the Dow. We didn't have it here. Now today, you're actually setting something up in place to allow that to happen. Now, whether it does or doesn't, that's you know, or doesn't, that's what we'll have to see, right? Look how it went into the swing point, though. So it was going into 2 swing points, right? Usually that's pretty good support. 1639.77 was the low. We got to 1639.43. We did 29.3 going into 35. So we got underneath it, back over it, less volume. Folks, that was the support area on a retest regenerate. this thing's going to try to regenerate higher. Okay, so even though it failed up here, and that leaves a different problem when we come back up, it has succeeded now, at least for now, on this time frame. What I'd also call your attention to, I'm going to pull you over to the SPX weekly chart. On the weekly chart, you can see the volumes. The volume's going to be lighter if they get a push up tomorrow. The low on the weekly last week was 1652.61. So we got to close over that. We're over that as far as now. Volume's going to be lighter. That's going to be under and back over and testing a swing point on a retest regenerate. So if you pull it back and you look at it, it doesn't look as bad. Okay, so that's a broader, that's taking the other side of the trade, if you will, because I've been talking about the potential for this market to work down after a bounce. As we just saw on the weekly, it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to work down again. In other words, this thing can go straight back up. That doesn't say that it doesn't mean that I'm saying it's going to do that. Matter of fact, I think it's going to have problems doing that, and I suspect it's going to fail in its attempt. And I'll show you why on the rest of the charts here. But as far as this chart's concerned, a little bounce is underway. Looks to me like this thing can try to work higher. And I got a question over here already on technical standpoint. Did it do a reversal today, an engulfing pattern? An engulfing pattern is where you actually engulf the prior day's lows, the meat of the bar, right? The colored part of the bar. And no, it didn't, because it wasn't underneath that. So it's really not an engulfing. There is a reversal from a different standpoint. The standpoint was yesterday you got the test on the swing point high. That's the retest regenerate on that particular high. And now it's trying to regenerate higher. This again is going to become support underneath it, and it's going to push right back up into here, and I suspect it's going to try to get all the way back up to the gap area, which is the August 15th highs, which was the gap down. That's the S&P. Now the Dow's a lot weaker, as you know. It seems like every day some company blows up in the Dow. The Dow actually did an inside day. Volume picked up. That really doesn't tell me a thing. And if I look on the weekly on this one, and here's why you can start to see why I'm not as positive. On the weekly, you've already failed on the retest regenerate on the Dow. So on the weekly Dow, you do not have a retest regenerate in play. As a matter of fact, the Dow looks pretty bearish from its technical perspective. Now we go into the stronger ones. If we go into the NASDAQ itself, the NASDAQ pushes up today into the gap finally. Remember, 4 days it's pushed up in there and couldn't get over it. Well, today it got over it. That high on the gap, 36.26, it closed at the highs, 36.38, got to 39. The swing point, not the swing point, but the retest regenerate off the swing point. The low there was 36.07, and remember the NASDAQ actually got under it 2 or 3 days, but it couldn't extend down. It couldn't break it down. Now it's popped back over, so even though you got underneath it, it's still held, by the skin of its teeth, I guess. And it's really not this one holding as much as the NDX. Note that the volume was very light today, and a lot of that has to do with the outage where 3 hours simply didn't get traded today. So you end up with an anomaly in terms of the health of this rally. If you take 3 hours off of it, that's almost half a trading day. We did 9. That would make it 18. Compare it to the prior day, it was 14, right? So you can see volume was about the same, if not a little heavier. On the NDX, and on the NASDAQ, I didn't pull the weeklies over, but on the NASDAQ, you actually have, you haven't even got back to try to retest, regenerate. You can see it here on the NDX. It was the same on the NASDAQ daily. The Dow has already broken these. S&P was testing these down here. The NASDAQ is up here testing the higher one. This is the first one it's trying to test, and it's testing on these higher ones. The low here, you've been testing it, holding it on the retest regenerate. Today it starts to regenerate higher, back into the gap. The NASDAQ and the NDX and the Russell all look like they're going to push back up and close the gap. That's what they're trying to do, at least, right? Whereas if you go back to the SPX probably going to get just to the top at best, right? The only way this thing gets going again is the NASDAQ and the Russell just simply blow things away and do another V-shaped recovery. Now, I've seen so many V-shaped recoveries, I don't dismiss them, because believe me, they can happen. The other thing you should note here is you've got two swing point highs at the highs. If we take 2 or 3 more bars, you're going to end up with another swing point high on the weekly. Folks, when this breaks, if this breaks to the top side, you're going to end up with a situation where multiple swing points are going to exist on multiple time frames, and we know what that means. That means that we can get a fast move in the direction of the break. So a push above these, say 3 weeks from now, is going to have you situated with multiple swing points on multiple time frames, and that can be a powerful move. And I'm glancing back over here, 1709.67. I'm looking at the weekly. So we're 3 bars. This week makes 3 bars into that high in terms of the weekly bars. So 3 more print, this one and 3 more, which would take you out to about the middle of September. If we don't make new highs on the indexes by then, that would set up multiple swing points. Russell. On the Russell, you know, we got 2 big pushes off the bottom, percent and a half, right? You did 2 of them. You're going right back up to get into the gap bar, and I suspect the Russell is going to probably close the gap just like I suggested. So, not to be too positive, because I still think there's some issues out here. Matter of fact, I know there's some issues out here, and the issues are multiple. Part of it's psychological in that there's a lot of uncertainties which make it very hard for the market to go up. The other piece of it, though, is the technicals, and that is that you're going back into the breakdown bar, and so far you haven't shown the ability to break back above it. And we had trouble just getting back into it. Now that they're into it, they're going to try to test the top. I would think that if that happens tomorrow, and we're very close here, we're also we're actually into it already on these others, like the composite and the NDX. It's going to be hard to close that gap. It's going to be hard to get over that gap on the Russell. I suspect it's going to be very difficult to do that. And so I'm not looking for new highs anytime soon in terms of breakouts. As a matter of fact, we still haven't done the retest regenerates. I think there's a good probability those are going to happen before the breakouts. And if you look at this, you can see there's a lot more downside than there is upside in terms of those 2 numbers when you're looking at the strong indexes. So let's see here. One more question, it looks like, on the SPX. Let's go back to the SPX since I'm on these before I move on. The 15th was the key bar. Yeah, it was, and we haven't got into it yet. I mean, we've gone into it and failed again. So you don't have it here. The problem, and the reason I'm singing a little more optimistically tonight, is if I go back and I look at the NDX and I look at the, these are the strong ones. These are back into the gap and they actually held. Remember, 4 days, long tails, you can't stay up there. You go into it and you hold today. Now, it doesn't mean that it can keep going, but that's a different tune today than we've seen. We've gone into that bar 4 times. Every time we fell, today they got into it, they stayed into it. That allows them to try to move higher tomorrow. If they move higher, I suspect they're going to pull the SPX higher, and that SPX is probably going to get into that bar. Now, if the SPX gets into it and holds into it for a couple bars, especially if it gets into it, say, halfway, which is the top of resistance, usually when you get into about it halfway or so, they're going to seek the other side of it. So, it will be a big day tomorrow again. It's been a big day every day this week. Today was the first day they would actually get to push up. So at this point, yeah, this is still a failure, but you've got the positives on the other side that are making me a little bit more positive about the possibility of this one getting into the bar. But yes, you're correct, Tommy. It did not get over that bar. It's still a failure from that perspective, and it will have to prove itself. And as we saw, the Dow did nothing. I mean, the Dow and the SPX are both the struggling ones, while the other three are carrying everything. Let's go to sectors though, and see if the sectors are giving us any kind of hints, because I didn't get a chance to look at these yet. So let's start with the transports. And yeah, big bounce here. So this one's going back into the bar from the top, 116.14, and we got into 115. We got it almost into it. So this will get into it and test it tomorrow. Not much in the way of volume. I would think that test, that's a swing point high and the low of this big wide price spread bar. That's probably going to be difficult to get back over. That also is the bottom of this bar, which was the prior swing point high. So there's going to be a lot of resistance in that 1650 area. So we'll see anywhere from about 1613. It looks like, what is that low? Excuse me, 16. Get the number right. 1614. 1614 up to about 1650. So it can travel a little bit more, but I think it's going to have problems up there. Let's see. If we look at the SOX, what is the SOX telling us? Not much, really. I don't see anything here to tell me anything. How about the materials? It's just got the gap. It's trying to get up to the top of the gap. No volume on the SOX. So materials. Okay, well, the materials are trying to get back up into this resistance zone. And there's a gap, these gapped down earlier. Remember on the weekly it was a failure up there. It looks to me like they're going to get back to the zone. But I don't see how they get over it either. So the two sectors so far that have told us anything look like they want to try to trade a little bit higher tomorrow. XLE. Okay, so now here's another one that's getting over the big Thursday bar. Is that Thursday? No, it's Monday. Thursday's here, August 15th. So the low was 81.20. It couldn't get into it, and it has less volume. So the XLE is going to run into resistance right here. Yeah, the charts are getting a little more complicated because there are a lot of things going on. First, you got the Thursday bar, right? Last week, that's the breakdown bar. Those breakdown bars also are going to be retest regenerates to the downside. They're going to be bearish retest regens, and so even if it gets into the bar, then it's got the retest regen right above it. Let me go back to the materials. I don't know if the materials were set up that way. No, the materials weren't. And how about the IYT? I need to focus on all three of these things. The IYT it's coming back immediately. It actually has already done its retest. Today it broke over it. So that one actually really just has resistance from the top. Okay, let's go to the financials, because the financials were the ones singing the problems. Now they got into the bar today, 1999. They're 20.04 on the close. They don't have the volume. The swing point low here is 2021. Yeah, that's the only one, because you never got a chance here to print one. So 2021, the high is 2021. Isn't it amazing how that works? And you see this so often. So 2021 is the key number here. We're trading at 20.04. This one can move higher. It can move higher and get back up into that zone, and that's where it's going to have problems, right? That little gap area, which happens to be a retest regen. So XLF can move higher. So that's three of them that can move higher, and one of them that looks like it can't, which is the XLE, or actually looks like it's going to have issues. Okay, here's the gap down on the XLI, the industrials, and they actually have the volume coming back into it, folks. Now, this is the strongest one we've seen so far. 9.1 coming back into 7.5. You're already over your retest regen on the downside. So that's being broken. This one actually looks like it's going to close the gap first, and that's where it will have its resistance. And again, notice how you're getting swing point highs in multiple places on the upside if these things break to the upside, which is something we'll have to use as a measurement tool. Remember, once we see one or two start to break, then the rest of them typically follow. We're a long ways away from that, but you can see how that setup can end up, to be a strong break. On the weekly, it's, again, on all of these, it's going to be 3 to 4 bars before the weekly sets up that way, though. This one can move higher, so that's 4 out of 5. And XLI looks the strongest right now. And that, if you think about what happened, you also had PMI news. That's another thing I've got to start watching more closely, is the international numbers anymore, because we're so tied together with these other markets at this point. And you had PMI numbers in manufacturing out of China, out of Europe, and then again out of the States this morning, and all of them showed strength. Hence, the industrials showed a much better day today. Okay, so this one's coming into the bar. It's into the bar. It doesn't have the volume. You've got a big resistance zone you're into. You don't have the swing point low stuff to worry about on it. This one just looks like the NASDAQ index. It's going to try to get to the gap area, so it can go higher too. But that's not a strong tell at all. XLP bonds turned finally today. We should have had a little help here. This one's an inside day. It really doesn't tell you much. They just got hurt. Let's see if the XLU looks any better, because it was also getting hammered. And no, it's an inside day too. Neither one of those did much. So the weakest sectors continue to be weak, and the strongest continue to be the strongest. XLI, well, with the exception of the financials. Okay, here's the healthcare. Didn't get much out of it today, did it? So this one's still struggling with that Thursday bar, and it did get into it today. 49.34. Excuse me, 49.63, and we closed into it. No volume. Okay, well, that's a weak tell that it's going to try to go higher and get to the top of the gap. XLY, discretionary, and that one, like the rest, wants to try to get to the gap area, which is where the swing point lows are. So sector-wise, kind of mirrors the strong indexes in that it looks like we could get a little farther push tomorrow. But all of them are saying we're going to have issues when we get to the top of the gap. And some of them are issues just trying to get into it. Let me see what the Ox markets did. I got a question emailed to me. I'll take that one on Tesla. If you have questions, jot them in. I'll try to answer them here. Looks like I'll have a couple minutes left. Let me look quickly at the Ox market. So TLT, so bonds. Bonds got a little push up today. Remember, yesterday came down, had volume. They got underneath the low, stayed under it yesterday on the close. Today they just spiked back up. These are going to try to rise one more time. And, whether they can or not is anybody's guess at this point, because there's no tell here. But if they can, look at the correlation. You had 2 days positive. What 2 days did you actually see a rise in the indexes? The same 2 days. This market cannot lift without the bonds lifting. If the bonds can come back up, test the swing point low, do another retest, regen lower, the market can come back up and test as well, right? Because the bonds are the market right now. The bonds are driving everything at this point. So if you want to know what to watch the bonds, because the bonds are pretty much telling you where the market's going. And they're not giving you a great tell tonight. FXE, the euro, that's not telling me anything. What did the dollar do? Did it have any volume as it went up? No volume. Doji, that's going to try to fall back tomorrow. So dollar come back, FXE probably goes up. How about the yen? The yen was weak today. Yeah, so the yen's back under, setting up another ABCD down to take it to the bottom of the range. Silver and gold. Gold was down about, I guess it was $8 or $9 early. No, I guess I'm wrong. I was looking at something else. I thought it was today. I guess it was yesterday I'm thinking about. So gold, did it test the top? 2251. No, it didn't get there still. Boy, that's a lot of dojis, huh? 5 dojis hanging at the highs, at resistance. If you can't take this thing down, they will try to take it up. Let's see if silver did anything to tell us something here about this precious metals. Okay, so the high on silver, 2251, still didn't get to the highs. Same story. If you're bearish on this market, you better get a break pretty soon. You've got the characteristics you want in that you've got all the tells to the upside that says that every time they get it up there, they sell it down. So there's a lot of supply there. But so far, the buyers keep stepping up. And I want to look at junk bonds and see if they rallied today. And they did. So that's another piece. This and bonds are the two to watch. Okay, let me take a look at Tesla, and then I'll look at any questions you guys have. All right, so Tesla, the question is when is this thing going to pull back so you can get in? Well, first of all, it's got a high volume high it wants to test, and that's what it's about to do. 158.88. I would think you get that test tomorrow. If you get the test tomorrow and it fails, then you can get a pullback, right? Right now, your pullback at best is going to come back into these two bars. So that's where the zone is shown. That's 123 area. 121 to 126. So somewhere in that area, about 126 probably. And you're trading at 150, so that's $30. $30 on this stock anymore is nothing. I mean, now that you're $150. You know, I'm not the type of person that trades. In other words, I won't buy this unless it gets a breakout, volume expands, and I can put my stop just underneath the breakout. If I get all those things, then I might take the trade. But in this particular one that's going up as far as it's going up, I don't even make that trade. I mean, look at your weekly. This thing has gone from 40 to 150, and it's done it in what? 5 months? That's just a little overbought to me. So, my advice, just stay out of it. Let the failure take place. Let it retrace back at least down to this 130 area, probably down about 122 to 126. And if it doesn't do it, you just have to lay off of it until it does it, and put your money somewhere else. Chase something else. I don't chase stocks. If I don't get the trade I want, I just put my money someplace else. And that's the way I trade. IWM. So what's IWM doing? Let's go back to the general markets. IWM. So IWM, we saw had a nice spike up on the Russell. This should have shown the same thing. 102.96, closed at 102.91. I'd be surprised if this doesn't try to get into the gap tomorrow. So anyone that's put stops right above here, they're going to get taken out tomorrow more than likely. And then you'll probably see a spike, because I'm sure stops are sitting there. There's not a lot of them, only at 6 trading days, but there'll be some there, and they'll spike it up in there and take them out, and then they'll probably pull back. So a little spike, and then maybe a little pullback. The Russell, just like the strong indexes, right? It's going to try to close the gap before it's over. Given the move yesterday down, and then you reverse that, right? That's a takeaway bar, right? Look at the SPX, because the SPX is the one that shows it. You get a spike down and you take it away the next day, right? Takeaway bars are momentum shifts. This thing's going to try to work higher. And, even though it's got a failure today, you've got the successes elsewhere. This thing's probably going to push into that bar, and you'll see it tomorrow more than likely. Okay, Okay, a couple more things real quick. It looks like okay. CLF. Let me read these notes right quick. So the question is, with positive PMI numbers from Europe, China, and the moves in the metals today, if it seems higher for commodities, doesn't it? Look at the move in CLF. Yeah, you got to bounce back up, but you got heavy resistance here in this area, so you can bounce back up into there. But I still think you're going to have trouble at the top. So yeah, I mean, if you want to play that trade, you can. You just got to do the numbers and see if it works. That's looks like about 2.5 higher, and you're risking 1.5. So if you can catch it tomorrow on a little retrace, yeah, you could play it. Do you have the link or directions to the TNT chat room archives or today's video? They actually exist in 2 places. So let me stop with that question. If you come to, let me pull this up so you can see. If you come to TATV, there's all channels, there's live streaming. If you come into live streaming, what you're going to find here is videos, right? These videos, if you click on the videos, you get several rooms here, right? You can go in there and you can find all the archives. There's 180 of them here that you can go in and you can pull things. Now, what we're starting to do as well with what we started over the weekend is if you go to all channels, you can actually view these things on YouTube. So if you come into YouTube, right, you can pop into YouTube, and they just started to print here. All of the videos are going to be set here as well. So just come into YouTube. There's a little video here on how to subscribe, upload, not to upload, but this one, subscribing to the TATA channel. Come in and watch that guy, and that'll show you how to subscribe. And if you do that, then you can easily get this stuff on a daily basis. The nice thing, and the reason we did this, is for you folks that actually have, want to listen to this on mobile devices, on iPads, things of that nature. You can do it here. You can do it on your own time, whenever you want, right? You can watch the archives. They'll all be archived here permanently. I have all the archives permanent, but they're not available. I only keep the last month or 2 archived on live stream. But these will be archived forever. That's another benefit of doing it on YouTube. So that's where you can find them all. Okay, tomorrow is, let's see, Friday. Let's see real quick here. Do we have any news coming out tomorrow that we need to be concerned about? I don't think so. International calendar. Let's pop into that right quick. Let's see what we got tomorrow. Light day. You got GDP. You got some GDP numbers out of Europe. And that's pretty much it. So that will be the one catalyst potentially tomorrow. All right, I'm gonna leave it at that, folks. I appreciate you being there. Tell a friend, tell 2. Help us help you. If you want, come over and do a referral. You can get free service. Check it out. Hit referrals. Check it out. Tell me who might want this service. If so, and if they join, you get the service for free. Have a great night. I'll catch you next time. Until then, I'm L.A. Little, and this is and was your daily TA wrap. Have a great one. Good night.